Beyond the bounds of reality hung a silver-pinnacled tower, and arcing stairways tethered it to shimmering realm gates, and its mountainous spires rose in anarchic profusion until they too were lost in the haze. Deep inside, in a chamber fashioned from crystal and stone, a sorcerer demon hunched over a mass of mirrors. The gaunt summoner was one of 9. He was known as the Thief of Wits, and feared for his sanity-blasting conjurations, and his ability to devour mortal thoughts. Within each of the summoner's mirrors, scenes of desperation and violence played out. Bands of heroes, villains, champions, and killers battled side by side against monsters and demons. They took daring leaps over yawning chasms. They pitted their wits against fiendish booby traps. The summoner had seen it play out 1,000 times, yet his fascination for the trials of those who walked his tower never diminished. He delighted in every struggle, every forced alliance and desperate betrayal, every permutation of guile, intrigue, foolishness, and fury. Just visible within each image were glinting threads, delicate as gossamer. They emerged from the hearts and minds of the champions and coiled away, representing fates not yet met. These were not strands that any normal being could perceive, but to the gaunt summoner they glinted with promise. Many were silver, those he ignored, yet a scant few glimmered gold, and these the gaunt summoner watched with rapt fascination. They represented events of great moment, strands of causality that may be subtly plucked in order to alter the wider weft of fate itself. It was so that they could cultivate and then appropriate those golden strands, that the gaunt summoner allowed mortal beings to stray into their silver towers. With each future, the demons twisted out of true. The complex weave of the demon's own tapestry of fate grew towards fruition. "Soon we will be great," crooned the Thief of Wits. And then... The demon paused as he felt a ripple of power pass through his sanctum. Purple flames dimmed in wall sconces, causing shadows to build from the chamber's corners and stretch like grasping fingers along the walls. The summoner sought an answer in his mirrors. Had one of his guests summoned especially powerful arcane forces? He recoiled with a hiss as he saw his mirrors going dark one by one. Hoarfrost crackled as it crept across their surfaces. Shadows swam within them, then resolved into new images. The gaunt summoner saw the corridors of his tower, but not as they should be. The fires had died. Monsters and champions alike were naught but mouldering bones, whilst here and there a wailing ghast drifted. The summoner keened as he saw all of the fascinating variation and bountiful mutability leaching from his domain. There was nothing here to serve the changer of ways. The weave and weft was gone, burned away to nothingness. All was static and dead. The demon's eyes flicked back and forth between mirrors, showing endless deserts of black sand, looming mountains of bone, and rank upon rank of shambling corpses with cold green witchfire burning in their eyes. The gaunt summoner ground his needle fangs together as he watched the negation of everything his god had set in motion. Behind it all, a skull visage, a leering and arrogant death's head that he knew from wars of old. Then the visions changed. Sorcerous sparks lit the darkness. Threads of gold enmeshed the limbs of stalking revenants and tore them apart, and from within the cadavers spilled esoteric energies. The summoner's eyes narrowed as ravening tides of magic billowed across his mirror images, and the realms shook with their power. Armies marched behind glowing figures across a desert of blackened bone, and the threads of gold wound amongst them until they jerked and twitched on puppet strings, and then were hanged by them. As suddenly as the visions had come, they faded. Ice melted to water and trickled to the floor. Torch flames leapt, his mirrors once again filled with the images of violence and desperation they had shown before. Yet now they held little interest for the summoner. He paced his sanctum, muttering to himself. He rifled through ancient tomes, then upended a box of rune-branded scarabrak beetles, and studied intently the direction each one scuttled before crushing them in the ritual order and swallowing them down. Suddenly decisive, the Thief of Wits cast his eyes skyward and intoned sibilant words. The sanctum's ceiling turned opaque, then vanished. In its place was revealed an expanse of fractal spaces and impossible stonework that spread away in all directions and would swiftly have driven any mortal mind mad. Among the endlessly replicating facets of sundered reality, the summoner's 8 kin looked up from their own sanctums and met his gaze. The tyrant of eyes stared at him through magically conjured orbs. The tongueless lord hunched over his mirrors as meltwater dripped from them. The others, too, were there, though several were illusionary simulacra. These saw to their duties in secret, even as their true selves walked the realms at Archeon's side. "You all saw, yes?" asked the Thief of Wits. "We saw," replied the Prince of Stolen Breaths. "It was a vision from the Changer. It portends victory for the upstart good of the dead." "If it was a vision from the Changer, then it portended possibility. Nothing is said yet." "Perhaps it is a warning that across leads towards the ruin," mused the Tyrant of Eyes. "A coward's claim. We have been wise at every weaving. The Changer shows us a confluence of fates, among which we may grasp the whole weave as one, and learn it to our own designs. We insert the sorcery that was unleashed, the threads that bound and strangled. Arrogance, dangerous arrogance. If the Ever-Chosen should learn our designs, our punishment would make all previous flights seem paltry by comparison. There is no guarantee those hanged figures were not our own. Until we free ourselves from his leash, we are little better than slaves. We are creatures of Zinch, not of Archeon. It is unbecoming." "This argument is a firelock turn to Amberson," said the Thief of Wits. "The Changer has led us a vision. This we know. Allegory is an open dome. Such as we, opportunity waits to be seized." "What are your thoughts?" "We have seen the omens, the port, the great surge and shade that wash across mortal realms. Now the Change sends us this vision of doom, damnation for. I have cast the beetle, and I believe it is a spur to action. I believe he wishes us to continue, but to alter our weaving in sympathy greater events." "You think he seeks an end to Archeon amidst this coming of the War of Souls?" "I think the Changer wishes power to be unleashed at both, and I think that we have set the price if we fail to act now. It is an opportunity, and I want both. I say we weavings against the Ever-Chosen, but with this vision in mind, we twist our champions' paths, so they may serve Zinch in this dark time, and in so do we bring it to Archeon at once." Several of the other summoners crooned their approval and eagerness. Others remained silent and watchful. "Let us suggested the Prince of Stolen Breaths. I have a notion where he might serve us best in this. Very well. If this is to be our course, then there are auguries and castings to be made. Our weave is infinitely complex and fragile. And time is currently spent in action than in discourse, is it not? Asked the Thief of Wits. We concur, said the Tyrant of Eyes after a heavy pause. We are agents of change in all its forms, and action will not suffice. Among the chorus of hissing breaths, the decision was made. The fractal vision vanished, replaced again by a ceiling of gem-studded stone. The Thief of Wits took a moment, then leant over his mirrors with fresh purpose. His eyes crawled across the figures within them, finally settling upon a Skaven Deathrunner from whom a thick golden thread stretched. The verminous assassin crouched behind a crystal column, daggers in hand, waiting with skittish patience as a band of champions strode, unknowing, into his ambush. Yes, you will do nicely, murmured the Thief of Wits, and his spider-like fingers began to weave.